Hey everybody, let's talk florals. So today I am going to be working on the half wreath version, but all of these stitches work if you get the tailor or if you've got the flower bomb or any other florals. So this is a lot of different ways to do them. I'm going to show you how to do a split stitch on this. If you really like the look of the back stitch, you can go over to my beginner video and watch that. That's going to be right here. The only difference I've made is this guy right here I have on the pattern is a wagon wheel stitch. It looks like the little BMW star, but I realized I don't have any of these geometric little roses over here, so I'm going to actually do one of those right there and do a wagon wheel over here, so you can just see all of our options. And then how I'm going to do one of these flowers is that's the same stitch that I use for these little guys, so I'll show you that too. So getting started, this is basically what's going to come in your kit. You're going to have your hoop with your fabric already in it, though you're probably going to need to give it a nice tighten. Generally to do that, you unscrew just a little bit, pull all the ways. I don't know what I love where that is. The linen's nice because you can really see if you've gotten anything wonky, or so if you start to see kind of a wiggle, you might need to pull differently or in a different spot. Tighten that sucker all the way up. Okay, so you've got your hoop, you've got your pattern already transferred on there, so you're ready to go with this. You're also going to have your thread, your needles right in here, and some little snips or scissors so you can keep track of everything. So the thread, how it comes on here is actually 6 strands. I've gone ahead and separated out, this is into just 3 strands. I suggest for anything you're working on, you cut it down to at least 3. You can do 2 or 1 depending on how fine you want to work. That's all really personal preference, up to you. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to thread our needle to start. Got my thread right here. Okay, we are going to start with threading our needle. So here we've got, this is just 3 strands instead of 6. I've gone ahead and separated that out for you. I have found no better way to get a needle threaded than spit and my thumbnail. So sorry, coronavirus, I know this is not the time for spit, but none of these that I'm spitting on are gonna leave my house. If it gets frayed, snip it back off or give it the spit again. I like to use my thumbnail just to get it into a nice little ribbon, but you can tell even for me, this still takes a while sometimes. Deep breaths. All right, that's not working, so we are just gonna see how snipping that off just made it really nice. There we go. Pull through. I don't like to work with a loose tail. I've shown you that on some of my other videos, so I like to go ahead, fold in half. Once I've got these little ends, even them up. Just do a simple knot. Pull through nice and close to the end, though you can always snip off if there's extra ends. We don't want those to get in the way. And then I just go ahead and do a double knot. And so we've got our little thread to work with. So I like to start on the biggest thing, whatever that is. I'm going to start on this flower right here. I'm working on a slightly smaller hoop just so I could do this video without it taking forever. So your flower is going to be a little bigger, a little more detailed, a little easier to get your details in. So this is called a satin stitch. We're going to start right from the middle of one of these petals and come all the way out to the edge. And then we're going to do that again right beside it. With a satin stitch, it's really important that your edges match up. For petals particularly, This takes some practice. If at first you don't succeed, as they say, try again. The great thing about embroidery is you can always snip it, stip your knot, pull the whole thing out, start over if you're not happy. So I finished the satin stitch on this first color. As you can see, I've just done all those 5 little petals. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to make, that looks like a flower. So I'm going to show you how we tie this off. This is really easy. Unless you're going to wear the embroidery, it doesn't have to be super perfect, super secure. So what I do is I just like to go under a stitch or two, pull through, and then while I've got this loop, I'm going to put my needle through it. Pull that tight, and then we do it again real quick. So going through a stitch, you can even go through your old knot, through the loop, pull, and done. Okay, so I just finished off those stitches. You can see how this is almost like a little version of this. So you're going to be using the same techniques on this pattern that we did right over here. So now I'm just starting on these daisies. There's a couple different ways you can do them. This first way is just a satin stitch with 3 stitches each. That's how I did most of these daisies, except this little one. I'll show you that in a minute. You can also just do 1 little stitch for these little ones. That's super easy. But so for the 3-stitch daisy petal, starting at the tip, coming down to the middle, and then just right to either side and slightly below, and then coming down back into that same hole. I'm going to add just a little other piece to each of those petals, back to that same hole in the middle, and that's how you get a little daisy. So this one is one of my favorites. So we're going to come over here and I'll show you this. This is how I did this daisy right here and how I did each of these little guys. So it gives you a nice rounded little loop shape. Great for daisy, great for leaves. So we're going to come up right at the middle, and this is key. You want to come back in right beside it. I want to make sure we hold this up here. Don't pull it all the way through. So we're left with this loop, lie it flat, and we are going to come up right at the tip of that flower and pull through and away. See how that got us a little loop? And then we are just going to tack it down just on the other side. All right, I'm going to show you that again. So coming up from the middle, pinch it. Going down again right beside it, keeping my loop, coming up at the end of where I want that petal, loop over it, pulling away. If you pull this way, see, that doesn't work. So if that happens, if you get too short, just pull it back out. So when you're pulling tight, you want to make sure to pull in the direction you want that petal or leaf to go, and then just tack it down. In and out, side by side. Come up at the tip of the flower, pull your loop tight, and tack it down. There's a petal that should be going under your other flower to do a fake one. All we're gonna do is just 2 little side-by-side stitches all the way up to the edge, so it looks like that's going underneath. And then don't worry, this is gonna get a central little knot too. We got a little daisy. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to show you the wagon wheel on this one. I'm going to show you my geometric rose. But it's really easy. It's just a lot of satin stitching again. You just want to be careful of the direction you're going, because that's how you differentiate the petals. You can also do like I did here, where you have a darker color in the middle, or you can do lighter in the middle. Again, no rules. Do as you wish. Have fun. Make it yours. Then we just got a little rose. Super simple. These are basically for background. There's a couple little ones on this guy. So now I'm going to show you a wagon wheel over here. This is a tiny little circle. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger, but what you're going to have is a circle with 3 spokes in the middle. Do 1 spoke, 2 spoke, 3. So you're going to do this, you're going to actually put those 3 little spokes on your, with thread. And you're going to come up as close to the center as possible. And now we're going to weave. So the first one we go over, second one we go under, next one we go over, next one we go under. So that's all this is, under, over, under, over. You can do this with as many odd numbered spokes as you want. It does get more complicated. This is one of those that's easier and harder than you think it will be. It's easier than it looks like when you see this really cool little rose. It's harder than you think it would be once you start. So I find 3 spokes to be the easiest, particularly because you literally know, okay, I went under this one last time, I'm going over. I went over this one last time, now I'm going under. It's like a really simple 3-strand braid. So over, and then the one that we just came over, that's the one we're gonna go under this time. So you can see how I'm using my fingers. I pull it tight to keep it flat. If you pull tight like that, that clearly does not look like a rose. Again, the great thing about this is there's no real stitches, so if yours gets messed up, slow down, pull it out, start over. You are fine. I have done these multiple times. So you start kit to the edge, like I said, to miss your mark. I forgot about this guy, I tried to go too far. We are almost done. You just want to go to where all of your spokes are completely covered up. Drives me crazy when I can see people's spokes, but that's personal. Originally thinking that both of these would be wagon wheels. You can do one of these geometric roses if you want. I'm going to go back and put a little dark in the middle the same way I'm going to put French knots in the middle of just about everything else. But we are done with most of our flower stuff and we are ready to move on to leaves, guys. So I'm going to show you a split stitch here. Like I said, if you really like the look of this simple stitch here, that's a back stitch. You can go to my beginner video for that. Split stitch is just a little bit different, but we start off the same way. So I'm going to come close right here to where the start of this kind of vine is. Go just one stitch up. So far, no different than back stitch. Now the next stitch, we're going to come up right in the middle of those threads, why it's called a split stitch, and come up again. So you can see the difference here between the split stitch and the back stitch, both of which you can use to just get a straight line. So for these leaves, I'm going to do the same way. It's basically just another satin stitch. The only thing is, again, I start at the tip in the middle and I come down not quite to where that's going to end, just above it, just so we don't get bulky there at the bottom. So kind of like those little leaves, then we're going to just come down a little bit on each side. I'm going to keep working from one side and then the other so we have a really nice, balanced, symmetrical leaf. So I'm also, as I work down the sides here, I'm going to start getting closer to where that stem attaches. And I did a classic carry and sewed this on. This is close enough to the edge. Just gonna snip it free. So now I want to make sure that we do in fact attach that. If you can't snip free easily like I did right there, you can always just undo those stitches and start over. And then we got a little leaf. I'm going to show you the rest of these fast so I can get them. So I'm going to show you a split stitch here. Like I said, if you really like the look of this simple stitch here, that's a back stitch. You can go to my beginner video for that. Split stitch is just a little bit different, but we start off the same way. So I'm going to come close right here to where the start of this kind of vine is. Go just one stitch up. So far, no different than back stitch. Now the next stitch, we're going to come up right in the middle of those threads, why it's called a split stitch, and come up again. So that leaves a much more blended stitch. It can also be good for something that needs to be a little bit rounder, though on the other side I'm going to show you a stem stitch that's a little trickier, but again, something that's really good. I mean, it's called stem stitch, so it works really well for anything stem-like. And there you go. So you can see the difference here between the split stitch and the back stitch, both of which you can use to just get a straight line. So for these leaves, I'm going to do the same way. It's basically just another satin stitch. The only thing is, again, I start at the tip in the middle and I come down not quite to where that's going to end, just above it, just so we don't get bulky there at the bottom. So kind of like those little leaves, then we're going to just come down a little bit on each side. I'm going to keep working from one side and then the other so we have a really nice, balanced, symmetrical leaf. So I'm also, as I work down the sides here, I'm going to start getting closer to where that stem attaches. Oop, and I did a classic carry and sewed this on. This is close enough to the edge. Just gonna snip it free. So now I want to make sure that we do in fact attach that. If you can't snip free easily like I did right there, you can always just undo those stitches and start over. And then we got a little leaf. Okay guys, so these last two techniques, as you can see, I finished this guy over here to match. I added just one of those little leaves in. These last two techniques are gonna be our most complicated. I'm not gonna say difficult because I know you can do them. They're not hard. There's just a few more steps than just like a simple satin stitch. So this first one is one I'm gonna do for a leaf. I'm gonna show you this little one, and then I'm gonna do little half versions on these leaves that go beneath our flower. And this is called a fishbone stitch, and I absolutely love it. So starts out very similar to our other leaf. One, we're going not all the way down, but a fair amount of the way. Coming back up just to one side, and in this one, we cross over that middle stitch. Come up on the other side, cross over our middle stitch again. Ooh. Happens to me literally all the time. Okay, so right now we've got kind of an X over line. Back up to that first side again. So we just kind of keep drawing this X, and the bottom half of the X gets covered up, so we're left with this really cool textured leaf. So this almost looks like it's braided or something. That's how I did these green ones here, and then I just put a little central vein down the middle. So for these guys over here, I'm going to start with this one on top, and of course I made a bigger flower over here, so that's going to get in my way. Okay guys, last but not least, I'm going to show you a French knot, and I'm going to show you on these pink ones first. So usually for my daisies, I just do one French knot, and then for the bigger flowers, sometimes I'll do more. This is a pretty small hole, so I'll probably just do one there, but you can always do a bunch of 2 and 3 loops like that, which I think looks super cute. So what I mean by 2 or 3 loops, coming up right in the middle, keeping our needle pointed up so we don't lose our loops. We're going to wrap around once, twice, 3 times, holding this tight. We're going to go back in right beside where we came up the first time, pulling that tight as we do. Pull this buddy through. Oh, I'm losing. Don't need you. And at the last minute you can let that go, and you've got a little knot there to finish your little flower. So I'll show you that again. Coming right up in the middle. 1, 2, 3. Down right beside it. Keep a nice tight hold of that as we pull through. And done. Get get my rose here one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our floral half wreath. So all of these lines that you can still see from my pattern, that's water soluble. So you can just rinse that off under tap water and then finish. You can go to my video about how to finish the hoop so you can see what it looks like with all these guys out of the way, but not bad, everybody. All right, I hope you like this. Please share with me if you make these, how it looks, and let me know. Tag me on Instagram at the Sailor's Kid. I would really love to see what you guys do. Thanks so much for stitching. Happy stitching.